The officers' club at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base was cool inside, a welcome escape from the Arizona heat. But the air was about to turn cold for a different reason. Captain Eva Reaper Rostova sat at a small table with her squadron. They were the A-10 pilots, the hog drivers. They wore their flight suits with a quiet pride. Their patches were old, faded. They were the pilots who flew low and slow, the ones who protected the soldiers on the ground. Eva was one of the best. She was small in stature, but she flew the biggest, ugliest, toughest plane in the Air Force. The A-10 Warthog was not a sleek fighter. It was a flying tank built around a 7-barrel cannon that sounded like thunder. Eva loved that plane. She loved it because it had one job: bring the ground troops home. The club doors opened, and a new sound filled the room. The sharp, clicking heels of Colonel Marcus Caesar Thorne. Thorne was the new wing commander. He came from the F-35 program. The fast movers. His jets were new, shiny, and cost $1 billion apiece. They flew at 50,000 feet, invisible. To Thorne, pilots like Eva were dinosaurs. He walked past her table, his eyes landing on her A-10 patch. He stopped. A small, cruel smile touched his lips. "Still flying that relic, Captain?" he asked, his voice loud enough for the whole room to hear. Eva's friends tensed. She kept her eyes forward and said, "It's a good plane, sir." Thorne laughed. It was not a nice sound. "It's a good target, Rostova. It's a slow, dirty pig, a relic from a forgotten war. The future is high, fast, and unseen. This plane is a coffin." Eva stood up. She wasn't tall, but she stood straight. "Sir, that coffin has saved more American lives on the ground than any other plane in the sky." The colonel stepped closer. He looked down at her. "You're just like your plane, Captain. Loud, slow, and obsolete. You're a throwback. You're the kind of pilot who doesn't fit in the new Air Force. You're not sharp enough. You're not fast enough." The room was dead silent. Every pilot from every squadron was watching. Eva's voice was low, but it did not tremble. "With all due respect, sir, you're wrong." The colonel's face hardened. The smile was gone. "Mark my words, Captain. The next time you take that antique into a real fight, you'll be the first one shot down. You're a liability. When that day comes, you will not return. You can count on it." He turned and walked away, leaving Eva standing alone in a room full of silence. The insult hung in the air, heavy and sharp. The colonel had just drawn a line in the sand, and Eva was on the wrong side of it. The next few months were hard. Colonel Thorne made good on his threat. He couldn't fire her, but he could make her life miserable. First, he assigned her squadron the worst flight hours. They flew in the dead of night or the worst heat of the day. Their maintenance budget was cut. They had to scavenge for parts to keep their relics flying. Then he went after Eva directly. He scheduled her for a check ride. This was a test, a flight review to make sure she was still qualified. The man he assigned to test her was Major Allen, Thorne's right-hand man. The mission was a simple training exercise. Eva was to support a group of Army Rangers in the desert. She flew perfectly. She was a master of her craft. She moved the A-10 like it was an extension of her own body. The Rangers on the ground were in awe. Her cannon fire was so precise, she could hit a single barrel from 2 miles away. When they landed, the Army team leader ran over, his face beaming. "Captain, that was the best close air support I have ever seen. You're an artist." Eva smiled. It was the first time she'd felt good in weeks. Then Major Allen walked up holding a clipboard. His face was a mask. "You failed, Captain," he said. Eva's smile vanished. "What?" "I hit every target." "You were 100 feet below the assigned minimum altitude," Allen said flatly. "A hot dog move. Reckless. Unsafe." "I was avoiding simulated anti-aircraft fire," Eva argued. "It was a tactical decision. It kept the plane safe and allowed me to hit the target." "It was a violation," Allen said. "Colonel Thorne was right about you. You're too aggressive. You don't follow the rules. You're grounded, pending a full safety review." Eva felt like she'd been punched. Grounded. A pilot who isn't flying is nothing. She was sent to a desk. For weeks, she filled out paperwork. She watched as other pilots, younger and less experienced, flew her plane. Colonel Thorne would walk by her desk every day. He wouldn't say a word. He would just look at her, a small, satisfied smirk on his face. The injustice burned in her chest. She was being punished not for being a bad pilot, but for being a good one. She was being punished for believing in her plane. Her squadron leader, a good man named Lieutenant Colonel Washington, fought for her. "Marcus, this is wrong," Washington told Thorne in his office. "She's the best A-10 pilot I've ever seen." "You're benching our star player because you don't like her uniform." Thorne leaned back in his expensive leather chair. "She's a danger to herself, Wash. She's emotional. She's too attached to that old junk pile. I'm protecting her from herself. And I'm protecting the Air Force from a lawsuit when she finally gets herself killed." Eva's career was stalling. She was trapped. She worked at her desk, the roar of jets passing overhead, reminding her of what she had lost. She was a bird with clipped wings, all because one powerful man decided she was obsolete. 6 weeks later, the world changed. A conflict flared up in a remote mountainous country. A brutal regime had taken over, and American citizens were trapped at an embassy. The first planes sent in were Colonel Thorne's F-35s. They were sleek, fast, and invisible. They dropped bombs from 40,000 feet. They destroyed the enemy's airfields and radar sites. From the air, the war looked easy. Colonel Thorne held a press briefing. "We have achieved total air dominance," he said, beaming for the cameras. The mission was a complete success. "The enemy is broken." But on the ground, the enemy was not broken. They were hiding. The regime's forces were not a modern army. They were guerrilla fighters. They hid in small villages, in deep canyons, and in civilian homes. The F-35s were too fast. Their pilots couldn't see the individual targets. They couldn't tell the good guys from the bad guys. A convoy of Army Rangers was sent in to rescue the embassy staff. They got halfway to the city and were ambushed. The enemy was waiting. They were dug in with heavy machine guns, mortars, and old Russian-made anti-aircraft guns. The Rangers were pinned down in a narrow valley. "The F-35s flying high overhead were useless. We need air support," the Army commander on the ground yelled into his radio. "We are taking heavy fire. We need eyes on target. I need someone low." In the high-tech command center back at the main air base, Colonel Thorne watched the satellite feed. He saw his fast jets circling, useless. The Army commander's voice came over the speaker, desperate and angry. "I don't need a satellite. I need a warthog! Get me an A-10 now! I need someone who will get in the mud with us." Thorne's face was grim. Every eye in the command center was on him. His high-tech war was failing. He looked at the deployment roster. The only A-10 squadron in the theater was Eva's. "Get me Captain Rostova," he said, his voice tight. Eva was brought to the command center. She was still in her desk uniform. "Captain," Thorne said, not looking her in the eye, "your safety review is over. You're cleared to fly. There is a Ranger convoy trapped in a place called Red Valley. They need help." Eva just nodded. She didn't say, "I told you so." She didn't say anything. She just turned and ran to the flight line. As she suited up, Colonel Thorne's voice came over her helmet radio. "Reaper, this is Caesar. You are flying top cover for my ground troops. Do not embarrass me. Do not do anything stupid. Just drop your bombs and come home. Do you understand me?" "I understand, sir," Eva said, closing her canopy. "My job is to bring them home." She pushed the throttle forward. The two big engines on her A-10 whined, then roared. The Relic lifted off the runway, heavy with bombs and bullets, and pointed its ugly nose toward the mountains. Red Valley was a death trap. The canyon walls were steep, rising thousands of feet on either side. The weather was closing in. Dark, heavy clouds hung low, mixing with the smoke from the battle. Eva, call sign Reaper 11, flew in low just under the clouds. Her wingman, Reaper 12, was just off her right. "Reaper 11, this is ground commander." A voice crackled over the radio. It was frantic. "We are pinned down. Enemy infantry in the rocks 200 meters to our north. They are about to overrun us." "I see them," Eva said. Her voice was calm. This was her world. The F-35s were still circling miles above the clouds. "Reaper, this is Caesar," Thorne's voice cut in. "You are not cleared to go below the cloud deck." "It's too dangerous." "Sir, the ground troops are inside the cloud deck," Eva said simply. "If I stay up here, I'm just a tourist." Before he could answer, she nosed the A-10 down and plunged into the smoky canyon. She was now flying below the level of the canyon rim. Red and green tracers, the lights of anti-aircraft fire, reached up for her like fiery fingers. "Reaper 1 to 2! Watch those tracers!" she yelled. "I see 'em! They're on the East Ridge!" Ava saw the Rangers. They were hiding behind their burning trucks. She saw the enemy fighters, dozens of them, climbing the rocks, getting ready for the final attack. "Ground Commander, this is Reaper. I am danger close. You're going to feel the heat from this one," Eva said. "Just send it." The commander screamed. Eva rolled her A-10 onto its side. She pointed the nose of her plane at the enemy. Her thumb moved to the red button on her control stick. She pressed it. The GAU-8 Avenger cannon opened up. The sound was not a pop, pop, pop. It was a deep, terrifying roar. "Bert!" The plane shook violently. A stream of 30-millimeter bullets, each the size of a milk bottle, tore into the mountainside. The rock, the enemy, the machine gun nests, they didn't just get hit. They vaporized. She pulled up, her engines screaming, and looped back around. "Good hits! Good hits!" The ground commander cheered. "You got 'em!" "They're running!" "They're not all running," her wingman called out. "Reaper 1, I see movement in that village. North End. Looks like... Yes, it's a ZSU, a mobile AA gun." Eva's blood ran cold. A ZSU-23-4, a Zeus. It was a radar-guided 4-barrel cannon that could tear an A-10 to pieces in seconds. "Reaper Flight, this is Caesar." Colonel Thorne's voice was sharp. "You've done your job. The Rangers are safe. Exit the valley immediately." "That ZSU is too hot. Sir, if we leave, that ZSU will tear the Rangers' rescue choppers to pieces," Eva said. "We have to take it out." "That is a negative, Captain," Thorne commanded. "I am not losing a plane for this." "You get out of there!" "That's an order." Ava looked down. She saw the ZSU's turret turning, searching for her. She saw the Rangers, still exposed. She made her choice. "Reaper 1 to 2, Eva said to her wingman. "You stay high. Keep an eye out for Sams." "I'm going in." "Eva, don't!" her wingman pleaded. "This is what we do," she said. She turned off her radio link to the command center, cutting off Colonel Thorne. Reaper 1-1, rolling in. The ZSU knew she was coming. The moment she dropped low, its 4 barrels opened up. A wall of green tracers filled the sky in front of her. Eva didn't fly through it. She flew under it. She was now flying barely 50 feet above the canyon floor. The ground rushed by in a blur. Her A-10 was a tough plane, but it wasn't magic. A hit like that would shred her. "Caesar is going to have your wings for this, Reaper," her wingman said, his voice tight with fear as he watched from above. "He'll have to catch me first," Eva grunted. She jinked left, then right, dodging the stream of fire. The noise inside her cockpit was deafening. Alarms were blaring. The plane was screaming at her. "Pull up! Pull up!" The ZSU was in a small courtyard next to an old building. It was hiding. Smart. "Ground Commander," Eva radioed. "I'm going to take out that ZSU. Tell your men to keep their heads down." She had one shot. She couldn't use her cannon. She was too low. She had to use a Maverick missile. She lined up the shot. The little green square on her screen locked onto the ZSU. "Fox 2, she called, firing the missile. The missile leaped off its rail and shot straight toward the target. But it was a trap. The ZSU was bait. The moment she fired, a new alarm shrieked in her ear, a high-pitched, terrifying sound. Missile lock! Sam! Sam!" her wingman screamed from above. "Ava, brake right! Brake right! It's on your tail!" A heat-seeking missile had been hidden on the roof of the building. It had locked onto her right engine. Eva slammed the control stick to the right. She dropped flares, bright magnesium bursts designed to fool the missile. The missile ignored them. It was too close. Eva had a choice. She could pull up, try to outrun the missile, and let her own Maverick miss the ZSU. Or she could hold her path, make sure her missile hit, and take the hit. She held her path. Her Maverick missile slammed into the ZSU. The ZSU exploded in a massive black and orange fireball. 2 seconds later, the enemy missile slammed into her right engine. The world turned into a nightmare of fire, noise, and pain. The A-10 was thrown sideways. The entire right side of Ava's plane was gone. The right engine, the right tail boom, just shredded metal. Mayday! Mayday! Reaper 1-1 is hit! I'm hit! She yelled into the radio. All her alarms were screaming at once. Fire. Hydraulic failure. Engine failure. The plane was dying. It was falling out of the sky, rolling over onto its back. Ava, eject! Eject! Her wingman was screaming. She fought the controls. The stick was dead in her hands. The plane was not responding. It was falling, spinning toward the rocks. No shoot! I see an explosion on the ridge, her wingman reported, his voice cracking. She's gone. Reaper 1-1 is down. Back in the command center, the room was silent. Colonel Thorne stared at the static on the screen where Eva's Reaper icon had been. He closed his eyes for a moment. He had given her an order. She had disobeyed, and now she was dead. He picked up the microphone. His voice was cold, professional. Reaper 1-2, confirm? Is Reaper 1-1 down? Confirmed, sir, the wingman said, his voice thick. She saved the ground team. The ZSU is gone. But she's gone, Thorne nodded. He turned to his aide. Mark Captain Rostova as killed in action. Alert search and rescue. But that was not a survivable crash. The mission is over. He looked at the other pilots in the room, his face a hard mask. I told her, that plane is a death trap. I told her she'd never return from a fight like that. She was reckless, and she paid the price. He walked out of the command center. He would write the report himself. It was a tragic but predictable loss. The old ways were done. The A-10 was a relic, and Ava Rostova was gone. The smoke from the battle in Red Valley slowly began to clear. The surviving Rangers, safe, were loaded into the rescue helicopters and flown back to base. The hours passed. The sun began to set. At the airbase, the mechanics in Eva's squadron sat on the ground, their heads in their hands. They had lost one of their own. It was almost dark. The base was quiet. A single fire truck sat near the end of the runway, a standard precaution. In the air traffic control tower, the controllers were finishing their shift. Suddenly, the radio crackled. It wasn't a clear transmission. It was a broken, static-filled whisper. Tower. This is 1. I am inbound. The tower chief frowned. Unidentified aircraft, this is tower. Say again. You are unreadable. Reaper, 1-1. The voice was strained, full of pain. Declaring an emergency. One engine, no, hydraulics. The chief's blood ran cold. He looked at his radar screen. There was nothing. No radar signal. Sir, your transponder is not working, the chief said. I don't see you. Where are you? 5 miles out, the voice whispered. Straight in. I can't turn. The chief grabbed his binoculars. He stared into the darkening sky. For a moment, he saw nothing. Then, he saw it. It was not a plane. It was a ghost. My God, he whispered. He hit the crash alarm. The button that sent every fire truck and ambulance on the base screaming toward the runway. All call signs, we have a zombie on final. He yelled. Down on the flight line, Colonel Thorne was in his office when he heard the alarms. He ran outside. He looked up, and his mouth fell open. It crawled out of the smoke and the twilight. It was an A-10, or what was left of one. The entire right engine was gone. Just a black smoking hole. The right tail fin was missing. The left engine was on fire. The plane was riddled with bullet holes. The nose was smashed. The landing gear was down, but one of the wheels was visibly crooked. It was a flying wreck. It shouldn't have been able to fly 10 feet. It had flown for 50 miles. It came in, not with a roar, but with a sick, wounded whine. It hit the runway hard. The crooked landing gear snapped. The plane slewed sideways, skidding on its belly in a shower of sparks. It scraped and tore across the pavement for 1,000 yards, a trail of fire and broken metal behind it. Finally, it stopped. The fire trucks raced toward it, dousing the burning engine in foam. Colonel Thorne ran, faster than he had ever run in his life. He got to the plane just as the fire crews finished. The wreck was silent. The cockpit was dark. She's dead, a firefighter said. No one could live through that. Then, with a groan of metal, the canopy opened. Ava Rostova, covered in soot and black hydraulic fluid, unstrapped herself. She was holding her left arm. It was clearly broken. She climbed out of the cockpit. She stood on the broken wing. She looked at the smoldering ruin of her plane. Then she looked at Colonel Thorne. Colonel Thorne stared at her. He was speechless. He looked from Ava to the plane and back to Ava. "How?" he whispered. "How is that possible? That plane, it should be a crater in that valley." Ava slid off the wing and her legs buckled. A medic caught her. She looked at Thorne, her eyes clear, even through the pain and the grime. "The Hog is built different, Colonel. It's built to take a hit. It's built to bring us home." Just then, another vehicle pulled up. A Jeep driving fast. The Army Ranger commander, the one from the valley, jumped out. He was still in his combat gear. He ran right past the colonel and straight to Eva. "Captain," he yelled, "they told me you were dead." He grabbed her good hand. You saved us. You saved my entire team. That ZSU we wouldn't have made it." Colonel Thorne finally found his voice. "Commander, I'm glad your team is safe." The Ranger turned to Thorne. His face was a mask of fury and gratitude. "She saved us, sir. Your F-35s were nowhere. They were useless. She came down into hell for us. I've never seen anything like it." Thorne nodded, still trying to process what he was seeing. "She disobeyed a direct order, Commander. She saved my life, Colonel," the Ranger shouted, and then the final twist. "And I don't know how I would have explained it to my wife. Your daughter, if I hadn't come home," the Ranger said. Thorne froze. He looked at the Ranger. "His son-in-law, the father of his grandchildren. Mikey," Thorne whispered. That was your team?" "Yes, sir," the Ranger said. "She saved me. She saved all of us. That relic you hate so much? It just saved your family." Thorne looked at Eva. He looked at the shattered A-10. He looked at his son-in-law. Alive and breathing, his entire world, his belief in technology, in rules, in new, clean jets, it all came crashing down. He was publicly, completely and totally humbled. Months later, they were back at Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. The whole wing was gathered. Colonel Marcus Thorne stood at the podium. He looked different. He looked older. "We often look to the future," he said, his voice quiet. "We look for what is new and fast and shiny. And in the process, we forget. We forget what toughness looks like. We forget what courage really is." He turned. Captain Eva Rostova. Front and center, Eva walked up. She was in her dress blues. Her arm was healed. Thorne didn't just pin a medal on her. He took the Distinguished Flying Cross, the highest honor for aerial bravery, and pinned it above her other ribbons. Then he did something no one had ever seen him do. He looked her in the eyes. "Captain," he said, his voice thick, "I said you were a relic. I said you wouldn't fit in. And I said you would never return." He paused, and his voice broke, just for a second. "I have never been so happy to be so wrong in my entire life. You are the finest pilot and the bravest soldier I have ever had the honor to serve with." He stepped back. And in front of the entire wing, Colonel Thorne raised his hand and gave Captain Eva Rostova a slow, perfect salute. Eva saluted back. The grudge was over. The truth was out. The relic had done what the new jets could not. And the pilot he had mocked, the woman he said would never return, had become the hero who saved them all.